Welcome to America Needs Fatima's Children's Stories, engaging stories of faith for Our Lady's little ones. My name is Tonya, and I will be reading to you today about the legend of Chanticleer. Chapter 1. Chanticleer and the Sun. Once upon a time in France lived a rooster. He was a modest rooster, gold in color, with a fine comb on his head. Known throughout the region as Chanticleer, he was the king and protector of his farmyard. Every morning, Chanticleer mounted the rooftop and heralded the morning with his clear crow. He lived to see the sun rise. Quite naturally, he thought the sun would not rise if he were not there to call it. He had doubts at times, but never failed to get up ahead of the sun and crow. Chanticleer never told anyone about raising the sun. Patou, the old watchdog, was the only one who guessed his secret. Patou's favorite occupation was basking in the sun and watching it light up the farmyard. Because of their mutual admiration for the light, the old dog and the rooster were best friends. One day, a frightened pheasant collapsed into the chicken coop in a heap of exhaustion. "Oh," she cried, "please hide me from the hunters who are seeking to hunt me." Chanticleer gallantly hid her in Patou's doghouse until the hunters had passed. Chanticleer was much taken with the beautiful pheasant. She was certainly much more interesting than the hens that only cared about pecking at grain. However, there were some within the farmyard and outside that did not like Chanticleer. The owls especially disliked him, for they disliked the light and dreaded the sun the Chanticleer raised. The cat, the ducks, the turkey, and the blackbird all envied him for one reason or another. Chapter 2. The Blackbird's Betrayal. And so, one starless night, while Chanticleer, Patou, and the golden pheasant slept, a secret meeting was being held. Deep in a nearby thicket, the discontented farmyard animals met, and after singly giving their reasons for hating Chanticleer, it was decided that he must die. And in the darkness they hatched a plan. In the farm over the hill lived a man who raised exotic chickens. Among these, there was an ugly, featherless rooster who was known as the champion of the fighting ring. It was arranged that he would challenge Chanticleer to a fight. Of course, the animal sneered, "We know who will win." But the blackbird objected. "The rooster won't come." "Oh, yes, he will," responded the cat. "If the pheasant comes, he will come. And she would never miss a chance to show off her beauty." And so everything was said. As the time approached for the guest to arrive, the blackbird waited at the gate, watching the horizon. Finally, a line of fancy roosters were seen approaching in the distance. The blackbird began announcing the strange birds. "The bird of Berkel, the Wyandotte rooster, the terror of India." And one after the other, they strutted into the garden with all their airs of great importance. Finally, Chanticleer appeared. "But how should I introduce you?" asked the bewildered blackbird. "Simply as the rooster," replied Chanticleer. "The rooster!" announced the blackbird. And at this, everyone fell silent. Chapter 3. The Fight.
"So, you're the rooster,"
the fighting chicken said, pushing his way through the crowd.
"I am the great champion of the fighting ring that has defeated many and all."
"And I'm the rooster, the one who protects many and all," replied Chanticleer.
"Humph!"
the game bird jeered.
"I live to kill and trample on those that don't deserve to live."
"And I," hesitated Chanticleer for a moment. Then, in an act of faith, he continued in his clear, loud voice, "I live to raise the sun, so that its rays may fill the world with its glorious light." "Ha ha 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 ha!" The game bird laughed, with everyone joining in. "You think you make the sun rise? That's too much." While all the animals laughed, the game bird suddenly lunged and struck Chanticleer. A roar went up from the crowd. Chanticleer looked around and saw all the animals gathered with eager faces, their necks stretched out and their eyes gleaming in anticipation. They were hideous. It was a terrible moment for poor Chanticleer. Sadly, he bowed his head. He understood. For the first time, he knew all of them for what they were. He felt entirely alone and deserted. Savagely, the evil game bird struck again, throwing Chanticleer to the ground. A terrible struggle for life and death began, but Chanticleer's disappointment and sadness sapped his spirit. The game bird attacked harder, quickly drawing blood. Chanticleer defended himself as best as he could, while all around the animals screamed, "Kill him! Kill him!" At a certain moment, Chanticleer looked up and saw the rays of the setting sun glistening on the trumpet-like shape of the rooster of France atop the cathedral spire. At this sight, his whole being rejoiced, and with renewed strength he flung himself at the game bird. Chapter 4. Chanticleer uses the sun. At the tremendous impact, the game bird was hurled into the air and fell upon his own spurs. He fell back, shook, cackled, and died. Chanticleer turned away from the fake applause and walked off. Only the pheasant followed him. "Come with me to the woods, dear Chanticleer," she said. "There you can forget the farmyard, and we can live happily together." Chanticleer nodded and followed the beautiful pheasant. But as time went on, Chanticleer began to feel restless. And the pheasant began to worry. Was her love enough? Could Chanticleer love the sun and his duty at the farmyard more than he loved her? She had to prove to him that the sun could rise by itself. But how? One early morning, when the stars could still be seen in their lofty dome, Chanticleer felt especially sad. At the pheasant's insinuations, his old doubt had returned. Was it really he who raised the sun? Realizing his state of mind, the pheasant approached him and covered him with her wing. "Dear Chanticleer, you must not be so sad. You have me." While speaking in those sweet tones, she watched the rising sun. For Chanticleer, everything was still dark under her warm mantle of feathers. Slowly, the sun rose higher. Suddenly, the pheasant withdrew her wing. "See," she cried cruelly, "the sun has risen without you." At that, Chanticleer started violently. "Oh, no, no, wait, not without me," he cried, rushing toward the light. But the horizon grew ever more golden, and he staggered back. She watched him closely. "You see, Chanticleer, loving one another is more than raising a sun that can't feel or think." There was a moment of silence. Then, raising himself, Chanticleer turned to her with a distant look. "No," he said. "Love is only true love in the light of a greater light. The sun may rise without me, but it will never rise without being heralded by my voice. I see now. I am the servant of the light. I am the one who calls the others to see the light. I am the herald of the light, and so I have become a symbol of this great valley, this great France. which has placed me at the top of her cathedrals. May I remain as simple and lofty as that rooster. Goodbye, pheasant." With this, he turned and made his way back to his farmyard. To this day, following his example, every barnyard rooster announces the glorious rays of the rising sun. Thank you for listening to this incredible story. Come back next week for a brand new adventure of faith.